Hello, Mark. How are you?
I'm wonderful. How about you?
Well,
And you're back. Where are you? I'm in New York City, but where are
I'm
you?
in Montreal right now. I
Okay.
wish you were here visiting Montreal.
I wish I was as well. I have not been there in quite a while, so I do owe Montreal and you a visit, and hopefully sooner rather than later.
I hope so too. I'm very happy to see you. You know, I'm a huge fan. I've been following your podcast, Reasonable Doubt, and your work as a criminal defense lawyer for quite a long time. So I'm always happy to chat with you, Mark. And I know you don't have too much time. So I just wanted to talk about Mark Geragos doing a high profile case again. But right now, a very unique and sensational case, the Menendez Brothers case, which was a big case like more than 35 years ago. And
Right? 35, and then now we're at the end of what hopefully is the end of their incarceration. But 2025 has been a huge year for them. I started off a little more than 2 years ago when we filed a writ of habeas corpus in the U.S. That's basically bring me the body. And back then, about 27 or 28 months ago, I don't think anybody was giving us any odds whatsoever on being able to do anything because basically after 2005, there was all of their appellate options had been exhausted. But we filed the habeas based on a letter and a declaration
Mhm.
that were not available, obviously, at the time that we believe make a prima facie case.
Yeah.
Sure enough, His Honor, Judge Ryan, asked the DA to informally reply. Then, in the process over a year, over litigating that, we then initiate, or the previous DA initiated a resentencing. We did that hearing in May. We won that. The clemency proceedings that we had applied for, the governor of our state converted to a parole hearing. And now we're 5 days away from the first parole hearing on Thursday, the 21st, and the second one on Friday, the 22nd. So fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed indeed. And this is like the light at the end of a very long tunnel, I guess, for the two brothers who have been in custody almost their entire lives right now.
Oh, but when you take a look at it, Eric has been there his entire adult life
Hmm.
since he was 18. Lyle, just shy of that, whatever the math is of 35 out of his 38 adult years. And they have separate proceedings this coming week. Parenthetically, we also filed a reply to the DA's warmed over opposition on the habeas. So we have the habeas track, which basically challenges the conviction itself. We've got the parole track, which is this week, which examines, it always focuses on the crime itself, but the focus is also on the rehabilitation
Right.
and what they're doing now and their insight. And then you've got, in addition to that, the clemency track is still there with the governor, who is the so-called safety valve as well. So we have three tracks, an embarrassment of options here. And I'm hoping, like I said, that this Thursday and Friday we get some good news.
But I mean, how are you feeling? Do you think that they have a pretty good chance of succeeding in any one of these options?
I always refrain a little bit in high profile cases because, what, normally if this were anybody else,
Yeah.
you would say yes, they should be paroled. But it's a high profile case. People do things differently. But look, if you take a look, and I'll take them separately, just as the parole board will. Eric has done incredible work after a kind of a slow start, if you will, when he was in custody, understandably, picked himself up, lost all hope in 2005 and had two options. You either kind of go the route where you're irredeemable because you're life without parole with no hope, or you decide, hey, I've got no hope, but you know what? I'm going to make every day better. He took that route. He started a hospice program because
Hmm.
in California, at least, the 90s were kind of known for, the hallmark of the 90s was this lock 'em up, throw away the key mentality, especially of young people. And so those people, fast forward 30 years later, have aged out. And if you go to a prison, one of the things you see is just the elderly population there, the very sick, the very old, and broken down. He started a hospice program. So at least at end of life, you'll see that the new prisoners are there and caring for the older prisoners. It's wild, actually. And until you get there and actually look at it and see young guys kind of wheeling around older prisoners, it's something to behold. But it's been an enormous success. There's talks about expanding that program to the women's population as well. Lyle, separately and apart, has started this green space program, which is a program modeled under or over the Norwegian model of rehabilitation, starting that process while you're inside, you redoing the common areas, having the prisoners involved in redoing the common areas, making them more welcoming and understanding this idea that you want to create a community inside so that when people get released, because after all, not everybody is life without. They're fully 90% of the prisoners are going to get released at some point. So why not get them accustomed or acclimated to what's going to happen on the outside? And that's part of what the Green Space program is. So they've really done some tremendously remarkable
Yeah.
work.
Well,
And
I mean, that's really good because it just shows that like it's rehabilitation in the works. And this is like extreme positive rehabilitation in their case. So they're actually contributing to society while they're in custody.
one of the remarkable things, I've used that word twice now, is during the resentencing hearing in May, we put on a number of witnesses, and they've got the unique good fortune of having all of their family unanimously behind them and want them to released. And the family members, we took a smattering of them and put them in front of Judge Jessic. But the the thing that he remarked on, Judge Jessic did when he resentenced them, which gave them the opportunity to have these hearings this week, was he remarked on the fact of the correctional officers who wrote letters saying that they would welcome these guys into their neighborhood. He, like me, you don't see that often. I mean, you rarely see it's
Yeah.
to see a family united to the victim's family, which in this case is also the defendant's family. But you then layer over that correctional officers attesting to their good work. Those are people who see them every day in their environment, and they're not faking it until they make it.
Well, and it's quite remarkable that they're doing
Now,
that.
you with
Yeah,
remarkable.
I'm using your word more. It's contagious, but it is. I mean, there's no other word I think to describe this because it's really very impressive, and especially because I know there has been a lot of. I mean, I think some members of the public kind of feel bad for them, but there are others who feel a little bit.
Well, one of the things I often hear is, what about Kitty? I
Right.
mean, there is an acceptance, I think, and rightfully so, that the evidence is overwhelming that Jose was a predator and that in the 90s you couldn't really understand that. People didn't understand fathers and sons that way. It just was something that you couldn't get your head around, which is why I've always said, and I borrowed it from somebody else, if they were the Menendez sisters, they wouldn't be in custody, nobody have a problem. We have evolved since then, and people much younger than me, more closer in age to you, have understood that abuse can take many forms.
Well,
But I
yeah.
would always say when somebody says, "What about Kitty?" I'd say, you know what? Not once, not twice, three times I have had Kitty's oldest sister testify that all she wants before she passes is for them to be out. So if Kitty's sister, who also doubles as a kind of a matriarchal figure in Kitty's life because there was an age difference. If Kitty's older sister can say that, then who are we to judge otherwise?
But also on that point, Mark, I do want to say I understand that there's overwhelming evidence about the father being abusive. But my question regarding Kitty is where was Kitty when all this abuse was happening? Like, why didn't she stop that? Because she was aware that there was something going on and she's whether she was a little bit negligent or ignored
Well,
it.
I think it was actually worse than that. Cliff Gardner, who brought me into this case as my co-counsel and a dear friend, he always points back to this one fact. There was a hallway rule that was testified to in the resentencing hearing. It was testified to in one of the trials. The hallway rule was if Jose was with either Eric or Lyle in a bedroom down the hallway, Kitty was the enforcer. You could not go down the hallway. What Cliff will always say to me is, can you imagine your wife or my wife enforcing that?
Exactly.
Never.
So I mean, like that in a way also would explain a bit of the rage that they had at that in that moment towards both parents, because yes, one was abusive, but the other one didn't do anything to prevent this happening to her own babies. Like that's what I find is so wild in this case.
It's
So,
absolutely true. And by the way, on top of that, the DA has mischaracterized this as them claiming self-defense. They weren't claiming self-defense. It was a legal argument that is long-standing in the law called imperfect self-defense.
mhm.
And he's smart enough to know the difference. He's just pandering because imperfect self-defense is you did it. It's not objectively reasonable. That would be self-defense. But at the time, whether through immaturity, whether through whatever your clouded judgment, and there's legal definitions of it. You're claiming that I did it, but it was an imperfect solution, which is why when the first two juries in the first trial, one for Eric, one
Yeah.
for were presented with the evidence, fully half of them voted not guilty on murder and guilty on manslaughter. If they had been convicted of manslaughter, they would have been out 20 years ago.
Yeah. Well, but it seems like now they're going to hopefully have some hope, and it'll be very nice for them, especially now that they're contributing to society. I think people will welcome them back. And those are people who never had any kind of record before they got into
That's
this
exactly right.
incident.
Now, I have a heart out. I want to come back and
Yeah,
talk to you, but next time I'm going to insist that you come do it in person in New
I
York.
will. I'll be more than happy to do so. So enjoy the rest of your weekend, Mark. It's always nice to see you.
Great to see you too. Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.